This is Jennifer Erbach, and today we're going to look at structured literacy, the essentials of the content, and who benefits from it. So this is the essential elements infographic that we showed in the lecture. We are going to use this as our frame for this class, and we're going to add a few more essential elements to this circle within this PowerPoint. Let's first look at the principles which made up the outer ring of the infographic. We need to teach in a way that is explicit, and within that definition is the word multisensory. It also needs to be diagnostic, sequential, and cumulative. In the next few slides, we'll talk about those a little bit more in depth. Let's first tackle explicit instruction. Explicit instruction is often called direct instruction because the teacher is directly teaching the skills in a straightforward way. When a concept is introduced, the teacher models, verbalizes steps, and provides guided practice and corrective feedback before the students work independently. Multisensory strategies, those that incorporate visual, auditory, and tactile, and or kinesthetic, are often incorporated in explicit instruction. Here's an example of explicit instruction with teaching phonemic awareness. If you look at this script that I wrote out for you, the teacher is first demonstrating how to break a word up into sounds. She has them watch her. Let's say all the sounds in map. Watch me. She touches the first box, touches the middle box, touches the last box, and goes on from there. This is very much clearly and straightforwardly modeling for the students the steps that they need to do in order to break down the word. In addition, it's using the multisensory strategies. It's using a visual of the acronym boxes, auditory as she says each sound, and tactile as she touches each box. Here's another example of explicit instruction, this time in phonics instruction. The teacher is introducing the vowel grapheme, EA saying E. Take a moment to scan over this example and notice the direct instruction and multisensory strategies used directly to teach the EA grapheme saying E. So diagnostic teaching is basically the continuous monitoring of students' progress to inform your planning and adjust instruction. And I want you to remember a few key principles of diagnostic teaching. So you're doing diagnostic teaching and monitoring the progress during the instruction and also after the instruction. You're using informal assessments like observations, work samples, even informal tests, and formal measures like standardized measures to inform your instruction. The goal is you're individualizing instruction. You're monitoring errors and hesitations in order to identify concepts that need more practice. And you're working towards mastery, 80 to 90% correct responses. So when we think about systematic and cumulative, we're thinking about teaching skills and concepts systematically by presenting them in a logical order and moving from easier to more difficult skills. Lessons are cumulative because they build on what is known and avoid adding unknown concepts. Here are some examples. Typically, we see these programs teaching the closed syllable before teaching any other type of syllable, such as the silent E syllable. And the reason we do that is because 50% of the syllables in running text are those closed syllables. We can also compare those other types of syllables to the closed syllable. We compare and contrast the look of it and the sound of the vowel in those syllables. We introduce 3 sound words before 4 sound words, so we move from easier to more difficult skills. In our lessons, we want to link to and review prior skills taught. We want to avoid using unknown concepts, especially with our younger readers. So with our younger readers, we want to think about controlled or decodable text that only use phonics principles and sight words that the students have learned. That way they are practicing the skills they've learned and they are avoiding guessing. So now it's time to define the content of structured literacy. The infographic that we used talked about phonology, sound symbols, syllables, morphology, syntax, and semantics. But structured literacy also includes fluency work, integration of writing, handwriting instruction. I just want to remind you that this particular module will cover the word recognition elements such as phonology, sound symbols, syllables, and morphology. In a future module, we will get at the other aspects of the content of structured literacy. So phonology is the study of the sound structure of spoken words in a language. I have an ear here to kind of remind you that we're talking about the sound structure of spoken words. This is not dealing with print. And phonology is a large term that includes things like the awareness of words, the awareness of syllables, counting of syllables, rhyming, and it also includes phonemes, which are the smallest units of sound. Sound symbol association. This is where we are now connecting specific phonemes with their letter or letter combinations. They're graphemes. We often do drills of the sound letter combinations. So I have cards here. The first one is just the F representing the F sound here. And then the other one actually presents a picture with it. So this might be used with our youngest kids where we put a key word with the sound. Next, we teach syllables. We teach 6 common types of syllables to help students identify vowel spelling and vowel sounds. We also teach syllable division rules. This will help students read unfamiliar and multisyllabic words. Morphology. The morphology is the smallest unit of meaning. So these are chunks that have meaning. And we teach students to identify prefixes, suffixes, and roots. And this can help students decode, spell, and identify the meaning of the word. So what you see is a word matrix. This is a map that we can use, that we use in the structured literacy to help students build words and identify the meaning of words. This is just one of the tools that we will use when we talk about morphology. Syntax. Syntax is a part of reading comprehension that most people don't think about. Syntactical awareness includes parts of speech, syntax structure, and language mechanics. This is a meta-linguistic skill that helps support reading comprehension and written expression. So we will be studying this more in depth in a future module. Semantics. Semantics refers to meaning. In structure literacy, the term encompasses the meaning of words, phrases, sentences, and connected text. So we are really talking about comprehension when we talk about semantics in structured literacy. Other areas of focus within the structured literacy are fluency, composition, or the integration of writing, and handwriting. These are also important to a structured literacy curriculum. So now I want to get into why structured literacy can help our struggling readers. If we look at the diagram to the right, we see 3 types of learning disabilities. Approximately 70 to 80% of our poor readers have a phonological deficit, which impacts accurate and fluent word recognition and eventually impacts fluency and comprehension. An additional 10 to 15% of students have fluency or naming speed deficits. These students may have accurate and word recognition, but they're slow at word recognition and at text reading, as well as automatically recalling the correct spelling of words. Researchers have debated whether the core deficit is related to processing speed or if it's an issue related to the storage and recall of exact letter sequences. Students who have both a phonological and a fluency naming deficit are often those with the most intense struggles with reading. While the first two groups of students struggle with the word level, the final subgroup usually is fine with word level recognition, but has difficulty with comprehension. These deficits may be caused by social linguistic disabilities, vocabulary acquisition, generalized language learning disorders, and learning difficulties that affect abstract reasoning and logical thinking. If we think about these three disabilities, they sometimes overlap as well. And a structured literacy program really gets at each one of these. For example, we have phonological awareness built into the program, not only in the phonological part, but when we think about building the words, we also often go back to building words and integrating phonological phonemic awareness within building those words. We also hit speed within each of these levels. So we're trying to get students automatic at their phoneme awareness, at their sound symbol relationship, at their word reading level. And we're also focusing on patterns when we think about syllables and morphemes. We're focusing on patterns to help those students who might have difficulty with the recall of certain patterns, the sequence of patterns within words. When we think about language comprehension, we talk about semantics. Morphology will help that, but also syntax will help, and overall comprehension strategies will help with that. So we have to get at those concepts and vocabulary, the syntax of the sentence, really to help those with language comprehension deficits. That's what we do in structured literacy. We get at all three of those areas that these students may struggle, all three of those areas the students may struggle with. So while structured literacy is critical for those students with reading disabilities, it can help all students as well. And this infographic was made by Nancy Young, and it is on the International Dyslexia website as well. When we think about those students with dyslexia, and again, we're thinking of those with the core phonological and sometimes that naming speed as well, difficulty, this is critical to them. This approach is critical to them. But if we think about structured literacy, it can be essential for up to 50% of the population, those where learning to read requires code-based, explicit, systematic, and sequential instruction. And it can be an advantage to students that could read relatively easy with broad instruction. There are 5% of students that reading seems effortless, and those students could also be advantaged by the structured literacy approach. Now, if you want the statistics backing up this infographic, you can click on the link on the left-hand side. This should give you all the stats that back up this infographic. So what's next? What I want you to do is view a video of structured literacy in action. This will give you an idea of some of the things that we talked about within this approach. And then I want you to view some structural literacy testimonials, and then view the CDE structured literacy free materials, because our class will be built on those free materials from Units 3 to Unit 6.